Hey everybody, welcome to Fed News, your fake wrestling news. So this week we have not only WrestleMania and Slamboree, but the World War III Independent 50 or 60 man, 3-ring battle royal. Let's find out who wins that. Let's see who the competitors will be. Now, of course, in wrestling news, Ole Anderson is in talks with UWA. Well Done's also in talks. World War III takes place this week. 60 people, unsigned wrestlers, of course. And UCW and UWF will have medals that, when won, score double points in the ranking system. So that will be introduced as well. There will basically be a medal, and I will make sure to announce who won the medals. The medals are good. They get to keep the medal until they lose a match. They lose to somebody else. So once they lose that medal to somebody else. So returning for a second attempt in World War III, though, is a few people. Big E, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Mark Jindrak, Sean Stasiak, Mitch, Johnny, and Mikey, David Carey, and Kevin Von Erich. As you can see, here's a ring one with Matt Stryker. I'll give you a second to kind of look it over if you'd like to do that. D'Lo Brown, Apollo Crews, Justin Gabriel, Dennis Connery, hoping to try to win this and get back into the company. Unfortunately, his contract was only 1 year stint, so he's currently out. Looking at other people here, Chris Jericho, of course, former world champion. He's in ring 2. He's also trying to get back in the hunt. Then you've got people like Top Dollar and Shanti Adonis, a tag team split up into different rings. Shad Gaspar and JTG also in different rings. The way it worked is that if a tag team was drawn, then they would go into each ring. It went ring 1, 2, 3, all down till we get to 60. Darren Young even trying to get back into a contract after having 1 year stint in the UWA. Now with 2 brands, hopefully he'll have a chance to get picked up in a different brand. Now, of course, the rules are still the same, except for there will be breaking news at the end of the video. So we can start with Thunder. Alex Wright defeats Eric Young by pinfall. Power and Glory defeats Chronic by pinfall. The main event sees Austin Theory defeat Tatanka by pinfall for the hardcore title. Over to Nitro now as Motion and Machine Guns defeat Rock and Roll Express. King Kong Bundy defeats Don Morocco. Raven defeats the Hurricane. Juventud Guerrero defeats Mike Kanellis, and the main event sees Rhino defeat Zeus by pinfall. Over to SmackDown now as Big Boss Man Bull Buchanan defeat Hart Dynasty, Singh Brothers by pinfall. Simon Dean defeats Carl Anderson, Norman Smiley as Eagle Jackson, Kevin Sullivan, Rick Rude by pinfall, and becomes the medal holder for the UWF brand. In the main event, Simon Diamond defeats Mr. Ass Billy Gunn to finally become a hardcore champion after going for 1 year with no titles whatsoever, finally winning his first. Over to Raw as Randy Rose defeats Giant Gonzalez by pinfall. A-Train defeats Marty Jannetty by pinfall. The Fiend and Braun Breaker defeat LOD by pinfall. Batista defeats Brian Knobbs by pinfall. And Yokozuna defeats Brian Pillman by pinfall to actually get a main event world title shot at WrestleMania. So instead of it maybe Brian Pillman versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Yokozuna is now in the mix in a triple threat match. The UCW match card for Slamboree was Doug Furnas and Philip Fromm versus Harlem Heat for the tag belts. Randy Orton takes on Macho Man Randy Savage. Kurt Angle takes on Andre the Giant. Sting takes on Hardcore Holly for the U.S. title, as they came to a draw last show. Bam Bam Bigelow versus Paul Orndorff. Test versus Orlando Jordan for the TV title. The main event sees The Big Show versus The Rock for the World Heavyweight. So over to Thunder as Reed Dragon defeat Cade Murdoch by pinfall. Eric Young defeats Moose, Cassius Ohno, Adam Cole, Ken Shamrock, and Tatanka to become the medal holder. That logo will not be there going forward. That was just a reminder. Alex Wright defeats Austin Theory to become the hardcore champion again. And Rey Mysterio and Roderick Strong ends in a time limit draw for the cruiserweight title. Over to Slamboree, though, as Harlem Heat defeats Doug Furnas and Philip Fromm to become the new tag team champions. Kurt Angle defeats Andre the Giant by pinfall. Test defeats Orlando Jordan to become the new television champion. Bam Bam Bigelow defeats Paul Orndorff by pinfall. Randy Savage defeats Randy Orton by pinfall. He's now the new #1 contender. And Sting defeats Hardcore Holly by pinfall to become the new U.S. champion. And The Big Show defeats The Rock to regain the UCW World Heavyweight Championship. Kicking off week 2, though, as Eric Young defeats Muhammad Ali by pinfall. Again, scoring double points since he is now the medal holder. Mike Kanellis defeats Alex Wright to become a hardcore champion. The main event sees Hurricane defeat Roderick Strong and Rey Mysterio by pinfall to become the new cruiserweight champion. Over to Nitro now as Power and Glory defeats Rock and Roll Express by pinfall. The Highlanders defeat Doug Furnas and Philip Fromm by pinfall. Orlando Jordan defeats Juventud, Randy Orton, Kurt Angle, Raven, and Rhino by pinfall to become the #1 contender for the TV title. King Kong Bundy and Andre the Giant defeat Motor City Machine Guns by pinfall. And Bam Bam Bigelow defeats The Rock in the main event by pinfall. Or to SmackDown now as Hart Dynasty defeats Singh Brothers. Simon Dean defeats Road Dogg Jesse James, again doubling his points. And Simon Diamond retains over Reggie by pinfall for the Hardcore title. Or to Raw as Titus O'Neil defeats Bob Backlund by pinfall. Jey Uso defeats Spike Dudley by pinfall. Batista defeats Jake Gemini by pinfall. Johnny Gargano defeats William Regal by pinfall. The main event sees Owen Hart defeat Jerry Lynn to become a now 4-time European champion. That's been renamed from the International Championship to the European Championship since AEW is now going to be coming in factor in year 3. For week 3 now is Eric Young defeats Moose. Caden Murdoch defeats Chronic. And the main event sees Mike Kanellis again retain his title, the Hardcore title, over Alex Wright. Over to Nitro now, though, is King Kong Bundy and Andre the Giant defeat Rock and Roll Express. Don Morocco defeats Raven. Randy Orton defeats Paul Orndorff. Kurt Angle defeats Rhino by pinfall. The main event sees Orlando Jordan pick up the victory over Test and become the television champion of UCW once again. Ezekiel Jackson defeats Kevin Sullivan by pinfall. Big Boss Man Bull Buchanan defeat the New Age Outlaws by pinfall. Main event sees Simon Diamond defeat Rick Rude to retain the Hardcore title. Holding on to that belt for a while. Over to Raw now as Jey Uso defeats William Regal. A-Train defeats Johnny Gargano. Larry Zbyszko defeats Chris Candido. And Roddy Piper defeats Sylvan by submission. The main event sees Randy Rose defeat Batista by countout. Kicking off week 4 as Tatanka defeats Austin Theory by pinfall. Eric Young defeats Cassius Ohno by pinfall. The main event sees Mike Kanellis defeat Ken Shamrock to retain the Hardcore title by pinfall. Over to Nitro now as Randy Orton defeats Zeus by pinfall. Doug Furnas and Phil LaFron defeat Andre the Giant King Kong Bundy by pinfall. Test defeats Kurt Angle by pinfall. The Highlanders defeat Power and Glory by pinfall. And Juventud Guerrero defeats The Rock by countout. Over to SmackDown, Singh Brothers defeat Norman Smiley and Reggie. Carl Anderson defeats Ezekiel Jackson by pinfall. And Simon Diamond defeats Simon Dean to keep the Hardcore title. Over to Raw as Giant Gonzalez defeats Larry Zbyszko. Bob Backlund defeats Jerry Lynn by submission. LOD defeats Jake Gemini and Spike Dudley by pinfall. Batista derails A-Train by pinfall. And Owen Hart defeats Randy Rose to retain the European Championship. Into the pay-per-view now. The card looks like The Fiend and Braun Breaker versus Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel for the tag belts. Batista takes on William Regal in a one-on-one match. Jey Uso versus Bob Backlund versus Owen Hart for the European title. LOD versus A-Train and Sylvan. Cesaro versus Cody Rhodes for the IC title. It's a return match from last month. And a 10-man Battle Royal WrestleMania. Now, last year was 30-man. This year is only 10. The main event will see Brian Pillman versus Yokozuna versus the champion Shinsuke Nakamura for the UWF World Heavyweight Championship. Kicking off with the pre-show SmackDown, New Age Outlaws and Psychosis defeat Singh Brothers and Kevin Sullivan by pinfall. Carl Anderson defeats Simon Diamond to become the new Hardcore champion. Simon Dean defeats Rick Rude to again double those points. And the main event sees the Dudleys defeat Big Boss Man and Bull Buchanan by pinfall. To the WrestleMania card is Braun Breaker and The Fiend defeat Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel by pinfall. Batista defeats William Regal by pinfall. Jey Uso beats Bob Backlund and Owen Hart to become the new UWF European Champion. LOD defeats A-Train and Sylvan in a tag team match. Cody Rhodes defeats Cesaro to retain the Intercontinental title. And Jake Gemini wins the 10-man WrestleMania Battle Royal. The main event, Brian Pillman defeats Yokozuna and Shinsuke Nakamura by pinfall. However, Yokozuna was injured during the match, so we will have in the next month the details of how long he will be out of the competition. Here are UWF champions. Brian Pillman there, now the new flag bearer of the championships. Then the UCW champions, Big Show, of course, back on top of the mountain again. He's the number 1 ranked superstar in UCW, as well as now the 2-time UCW World Heavyweight Champion. Sting winning the U.S. title. He will have to take on Hardcore Harley, though, at the next pay-per-view, since Hardcore does have a rematch clause. Breaking news, however, UCW News have discontinued the USA tag belts as of the start of next week, so the Redragons and the Dudleys will be retiring those belts. The tag belts will not be there. They won't be on the page anymore. They're going to be discontinued. Just basically because I feel like there's too many belts. It's too cramped inside the viewing screen. And plus, we already have one set of tag team championships. We don't need 2 sets of tag team championships. Of course, going forward, it'll be 6 championships. They're still going to have the light heavyweight and the cruiserweight on their shows, as well as the hardcore division. But I just felt like a secondary tag team was too much, especially with me adding in more brands coming up in the future. And your World War III Battle Royal, 60-man Battle Royal winner was Ashanti Adonis. He lasted a lot of people. Came down to, I do believe, him. A lot of people, a lot of long shots in the finals there. Ashanti, of course, with this win, will now take his tag team partner Top Dollar, and they both will debut either on UWF or UCW in the coming future. Of course, these two are basically sent to the brand that wins the brand war, which we know it's 1-to-1. We have bragging rights, we had brand warfare. All out war will determine who wins this year's competition, and then who gets to sign the news tag team to their roster. About 10 guys from each brand, if not more, are scheduled to be released. They only have a 1-year contract up, so stay tuned to find out who's going to be leaving, what brand they're going to, and who will be debuting in the coming year. That's all for this week. I know it's a longer week, but stay tuned next week. We've got Backlash coming up, and we've got Spring Stampede. Till next time.